Specifically, we're going to be looking at the real estate market there using this interview we have with Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo.
Yeah, he's a developer who's had decades of experience in both the UK and Nigerian property markets.
So he's got a pretty unique perspective, right? I mean, he's seen both sides of the coin.
Exactly, and he doesn't hold back either. You'll see, he's got some strong opinions about how things work over there.
Which is exactly what we want for a deep dive, right?
Yeah.
Someone who's going to give us the real deal, not just the glossy brochure version.
Totally. And what makes this interview so interesting is that he's not just talking theory, he's talking from experience.
Yeah, he's been there, done that.
Like, he actually talks about seeing areas like Allen Avenue and Ojulegba transform from basically just bush into major hubs.
I mean, that's got to be mind-blowing to witness firsthand. The speed of development in Lagos is just insane.
Oh, it's incredible. And it really hits home when he tells that story about his father-in-law.
Oh, yeah. The one where he bought those 2 plots of land in Nisolo.
Yeah, for just 500 naira each. Back then, it was basically nothing.
And those plots ended up selling for millions later on.
Millions. Talk about a good investment. I mean, that's the kind of story that makes people want to pack their bags and head straight to Lagos, right?
Definitely. But it also makes you wonder, how does land ownership even work in a place that's changing so rapidly?
Right. Because it can't be as simple as just picking a spot and saying, this is mine.
Definitely not. So how does it actually work? I mean, where do you even start?
Well, Pastor Ashimolowo actually breaks it down into 4 main stages.
Okay, hit me with them.
All right, so you've got excision, regularization, allocation, and condonation. These are all basically ways the government gives you rights to own land.
All right, break those down for me. Pretend I know absolutely nothing about Lagos real estate. What do I need to know about these stages?
Okay, so think of it like this. The government owns a giant cake, right? And excision is like cutting a slice out of that cake and giving it to individuals or communities.
Okay, so that's kind of the first step in making it private property.
Exactly. Now, let's say someone takes a bite of the cake before it's properly sliced up.
Sneaky.
Right. Well, that's where regularization comes in. The government is like, okay, you've already developed this land, so we're going to make it official, give you the right paperwork.
So it's like, we see you there with crumbs on your face. Let's just make this legal. I get it. Okay, what about allocation? What's that like?
Allocation is more planned and organized. It's like the government saying, okay, we've decided we want to use this section of the cake for something specific, like schools or hospitals.
So they're allocating it for a purpose.
Right. And they'll give plots of land to developers who can make those things happen. And then finally, there's condonation.
Condonation. What's that all about?
This one's really interesting. It's where the government basically says, okay, we know you built the structure without getting all the approvals.
So they're basically giving a pass to people who maybe bent the rules a bit.
Yeah, kind of. It's a way to deal with those situations where people built first and ask for permission later.
I see. So that's how land ownership works in Lagos. Sounds pretty straightforward, right?
Well, not quite. Pastor Ashimolowo is pretty clear that the whole process can get super complicated. There's a lot of bureaucracy, paperwork, and things aren't always so clear-cut.
I was going to say, there's got to be some hiccups along the way.
Definitely. Plus, sometimes the government's master plans, which is basically their big vision for how the city should develop, well, sometimes those plans aren't very clear.
So that would create a lot of confusion for people, right? Not knowing exactly where they can build or what the rules are.
Exactly. And if you're not careful, you could end up buying land that doesn't have all the right documentation.
Oof, that sounds risky.
Yeah, it can be. That's why Pastor Ashimolowo is really big on working with reputable developers, people who've got a good track record and are really transparent about what they're doing.
Makes sense. You want someone you can trust, especially when there's so much at stake.
Totally. But he also emphasizes that you can't just blindly trust anyone. You still have to do your own due diligence.
So that means what? Checking everything out yourself, verifying ownership, all that.
Exactly. Making sure all the approvals are in place, understanding what the risks are. He even uses his own development, Macario Luxury Place, as an example.
Oh, yeah, he mentioned that a few times. It sounds like he had to jump through a lot of hoops to get that project off the ground.
Definitely. He had to deal with all these same complexities. But it's not just about the technicalities of land ownership that he talks about. He also gets into these Igbo Must Go rumors that have been circulating.
Oh, yeah, I've heard about those. That's pretty concerning, isn't it? The idea that some people are trying to exclude a whole group of people from the real estate market just based on their ethnicity.
It is concerning, but Pastor Ashimolowo is very clear that he believes those rumors are baseless, and they're being spread by a very small group of people who are trying to stir up trouble.
So he's not buying into that narrative at all.
Nope. He's adamant that Lagos belongs to all Nigerians and that the Igbo community, the group that's often referred to as EO, has made huge contributions to the city's economy.
It's important to hear that perspective, especially when those rumors could create a lot of fear and uncertainty for potential investors.
Definitely. And his message is basically, don't let this kind of divisive rhetoric scare you away from exploring the opportunities that Lagos has to offer. It's a city built on collaboration, and he's confident that that inclusive spirit will prevail.
That's a good message to hear.
Mm.
But even with all the positives, I think it's important to acknowledge that there are some issues in Lagos that are, well, a bit more sensitive, like the issue of demolitions.
You're right. It's a tough topic, but it's definitely something we can't ignore, especially in a city that's developing as rapidly as Lagos.
And Pastor Ashimolowo, I mean, he doesn't shy away from that topic at all. He talks very openly about it.
He does, and he acknowledges that, yeah, demolitions happen, often because buildings don't meet certain regulations or safety standards. But he also criticizes the government for not always being clear about their master plan, which can lead to confusion and sometimes demolitions that feel really unfair.
So it's not as simple as saying that the government is just randomly bulldozing people's homes, right?
Exactly. There are often legitimate reasons behind it, like enforcing those master plans we talked about, making sure buildings are safe, preventing people from building on land that's meant for public use. It's a complex issue, and he really emphasizes the importance of understanding both sides of the story.
Right, because I think it's easy to just see those images of demolished buildings and think,
Mhm.
oh, the government is just being ruthless. But it sounds like there's a lot more nuance to it than that.
There definitely is. And Pastor Ashimolo believes that better communication and more transparency from the government could go a long way in preventing some of those demolitions that seem unnecessary or unfair.
Yeah, if people are clear about where they can and can't build, it would probably eliminate a lot of problems. So he's basically saying, look, this is a reality in Lagos. You can't just ignore it. But there are things that can be done to make the system more fair and transparent.
Exactly. And he even suggests some specific solutions, like using that condonation process we talked about earlier, where the government basically legalizes structures that were built without full approval.
Oh, right, yeah. So if they can legalize some of those existing structures, it could help a lot of people avoid losing their homes.
Right. And he also talks about getting creative with solutions. Like maybe instead of demolishing homes that are built too close to a canal, they could find ways to divert the canal. Think outside the box a little bit.
Yeah, I like that. It's about finding solutions that actually benefit people, not just blindly following the rules. But okay, let's say I'm someone who's thinking about buying property in Lagos. What's his advice for avoiding that whole demolition risk?
Well, first and foremost, he says, do your homework. Make sure any property you're considering has all the necessary approvals, work with developers who have a good reputation, and prioritize compliance.
So basically, don't cut corners.
Exactly. And he also encourages people to be proactive, advocate for better urban planning, make sure that information about development plans is easily accessible to everyone. It's about being informed, being proactive, and making sure you're doing everything you can to protect your investment.
Great advice. It's about being smart and responsible, both for yourself and for the community as a whole.
Exactly. He doesn't just want you to understand the system. He wants you to help make it better. But okay, before we go any further, let's take a quick break. When we come back, we'll dive into the financial side of things.
Okay, sounds good. Let's talk about money.
Yeah, because getting a mortgage in Nigeria, well, it's a whole other story.
I bet it is. All right, we'll be back in a bit to break that all down. Okay, so we're back and ready to dive into the financial side of Lagos real estate. I have to say, after that last segment, I'm feeling a bit overwhelmed by the complexities of it all.
It's a lot to take in, for sure. But like I said before, that's what makes this deep dive with Pastor Ashimolowo so valuable. He's not sugarcoating anything. He's giving it to us straight, no holds barred.
And he's definitely not holding back when it comes to his opinions about the Nigerian banking system, especially when it comes to mortgages.
Oh yeah, that was a pretty eye-opening part of the interview. He seems incredibly frustrated with the lack of accessible and affordable mortgage options in Nigeria.
He even shared some pretty shocking stories about his own experiences with Nigerian banks, like the time he lost millions in the stock market while land values were skyrocketing. It sounds like a missed opportunity of epic proportions.
I know, right? Imagine if he had put that money into land 20 years ago. He'd be sitting on a gold mine today.
It definitely makes you think twice about where you put your money, that's for sure. But let's shift gears for a moment and talk more about Macario Luxury Place, Pastor Ashimolowo's own development. It seems like he's aiming to create more than just a collection of buildings. He's trying to foster a certain kind of community, a lifestyle.
Absolutely. He talks about wanting to attract residents who share a similar mindset, people who appreciate a well-maintained, secure environment, and are willing to pay a premium for it. It's like he's curating a community of like-minded individuals.
It's fascinating to see how he's combining luxury living with that sense of community. And with all the amenities he mentioned, like that incredible water show, it sounds like he's going above and beyond to create a really unique experience for residents.
He's definitely setting a new standard for luxury living in Lagos. And from what he says, it seems to be working. He mentioned that those early investors in Macario Luxury Place are already seeing significant returns.
That's encouraging news for anyone who's thinking about investing in Lagos real estate. But I know some listeners might be thinking, okay, this all sounds amazing, but how do I even get started? So let's pretend for a moment that I'm someone who's completely new to this market. What are the first steps Pastor Ashimolowo recommends?
Well, before you even think about looking at properties, he stresses the importance of research. You can't just jump into any opportunity that comes your way. Lagos is a huge city, lots of different neighborhoods, each with their own unique characteristics and growth potential.
So it's about being informed, not just getting swept up in the hype of a booming market.
Exactly. And once you have a better understanding of the market, he says it's crucial to build a strong team of trusted advisors. You need a good real estate agent who knows the Lagos market inside and out.
Someone who can guide you through the process.
Exactly. And a good lawyer is essential too. Someone who can help you navigate all the legal complexities of buying property in Lagos.
Right, because we've already seen how complicated that can be.
And maybe even more importantly, you need to find a developer with a solid track record. Someone who's committed to transparency and ethical practices.
So basically, surround yourself with people you can trust.
Absolutely. Having the right team can make all the difference.
He also recommends diversifying your portfolio.
Yeah.
Right? Not putting all your eggs in one basket.
Exactly. Explore different types of properties, from residential to commercial. Consider investing in different areas of Lagos to spread the risk.
It's a classic investment strategy that applies just as much to real estate as it does to stocks or bonds. And it ties into another point he made about having a long-term perspective. He's not interested in those quick flips or get-rich-quick schemes. He's all about building sustainable wealth through real estate.
That's right. He sees it as a long-term game. He even used the example of planting a tree. You don't expect it to grow into a mighty oak overnight.
It takes time, patience, and consistent effort.
Exactly. And that same principle applies to real estate in Lagos. He emphasizes that you need patience. Things might move slowly sometimes, especially when you're dealing with all that bureaucracy and those legal processes.
So don't get discouraged if things don't happen overnight.
Right. But while you're being patient, he also suggests leveraging technology and staying informed. There are tons of online platforms, industry events, and networks that can provide valuable insights.
He's a big believer in staying ahead of the curve, isn't he?
Oh, absolutely. And it's not just about technology, it's also about building relationships with people who have experience and knowledge.
So networking is still crucial.
More than ever, especially in a place like Lagos where personal connections can open doors. But one of the most crucial pieces of advice he gives, and I think this is really important, is to really understand the legal frameworks surrounding real estate in Lagos. Familiarize yourself with the laws, the regulations, the procedures.
That's where having that good lawyer comes in handy.
Exactly. They can help you navigate all that. But even with all the research and due diligence in the world, financing can still be a major hurdle. Given his strong opinions about the current mortgage system in Nigeria, what does Pastor Ashimolowo suggest as alternatives?
Yeah, because from what he said, getting a traditional mortgage in Nigeria doesn't seem like a very appealing option.
He encourages people to think outside the box. Look beyond those traditional banks. There are private lenders, you could partner with other investors, even explore crowdfunding platforms.
So there are options out there, even if the traditional route isn't feasible.
Absolutely. But no matter how you choose to finance your investments, he stresses the importance of being realistic about your financial situation and your risk tolerance.
Right, because real estate can be incredibly rewarding, but it's not without its risks.
He's a big believer in calculated risks, not just blindly jumping into something without understanding the potential downsides. But beyond the financial aspects, he also reminds us that Lagos has its own unique cultural nuances that can impact business dealings.
It's about understanding how things work in Lagos, both from a business perspective and a cultural perspective.
You have to be adaptable, respectful of local customs. Building relationships is key. He really emphasizes that Lagos is a dynamic, energetic city. It's constantly evolving. It's a place with immense potential, but also intense competition.
It sounds like he's painting a picture of Lagos as a city that demands respect, both for its opportunities and its challenges.
Exactly. You can't just waltz in and expect to make a fortune overnight. You have to be prepared to work hard, learn the ropes, and adapt.
So it's not for the faint of heart.
Definitely not. But for those who are willing to put in the effort, the rewards can be extraordinary.
And beyond the practical advice, he also emphasizes the importance of ethics.
Yeah, he believes that developers and investors have a responsibility to operate with integrity, transparency, and a long-term vision.
It's not just about building properties. It's about building trust and contributing to the growth of the city, which I think is a really important point.
He wants people to approach this market with a sense of purpose, not just greed.
He wants to see Lagos thrive, but he also wants to see that prosperity shared in a way that benefits everyone.
He's calling for a more equitable approach to development, one where ordinary people have the tools and opportunities they need to succeed, not just those with wealth and connections.
It's a powerful message. So for those of you listening, what does all of this mean for you? It means that Lagos is a city of incredible potential, but also one with complexities and challenges. You need to be informed, strategic, and adaptable to succeed here.
Do your research, build a strong network, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
Think about the long-term implications of your investments, both financially and ethically.
And remember, Pastor Ashimolowo's message is ultimately one of empowerment. He wants you to see yourself as an active participant in the Lagos real estate market, not just a passive observer.
He believes that with the right mindset and the right approach, anyone can find success in this dynamic and exciting city.
So if you've been thinking about investing in Lagos real estate, now is the time to take the plunge. Do your homework, connect with experts, and start exploring the opportunities that await.
And as Pastor Ashimolowo says, don't miss out on the next wave of growth.
This is a city on the move, and those who get in early stand to reap the rewards.
That's it for our deep dive into Lagos real estate with Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo. We hope you found his insights as valuable and thought-provoking as we did.
And remember, knowledge is power. Informed decisions are the key to success in any market.
Thanks for joining us on the deep dive. Wow, so much to unpack about Lagos real estate. It really does seem like a place that's full of potential, but also requires a lot of careful consideration.
Yeah, definitely. And I think that's something Pastor Ashimolowo really emphasizes throughout this whole interview. It's not a place for the faint of heart, but if you're willing to put in the effort, it could be incredibly rewarding.
It seems like he's incredibly optimistic about the future of Lagos.
Oh, absolutely. He really sees it becoming a global powerhouse. He even compared it to London at one point, suggesting that it could be a major hub for international capital in the future.
I mean, it makes sense. Lagos is growing at an incredible pace. It's got that strategic location and a young, ambitious population.
And he pointed out how a lot of the European and American real estate markets are getting really saturated, while Lagos still has so much room for expansion.
So it's like he's saying, get in now while the opportunity's still there.
Exactly. He's tapping into that whole frontier market mentality where investors are looking for the next big thing. And he believes Lagos is it.
And he backs it up with some pretty convincing arguments. He talked about how Lagos is attracting attention from all over the world, from China, from the Middle East. It's like a magnet for international investment.
And he uses that great analogy, a rising tide lifts all boats. He believes that Lagos is that rising tide, and those who invest wisely will be carried along with it.
But it's not just about financial gain for him, is it? He also talked about building a legacy, creating something that will last for generations.
Yeah, that's a really interesting aspect of his perspective. He's not just thinking about quick profits, he's thinking about long-term value creation.
He told that story about the Duke of Westminster, who inherited all that land in London, land that's generated wealth for his family for centuries.
And he's basically saying that Lagos could be the next London, a place where today's investments could benefit families for generations to come.
It's a powerful vision. But even with all this talk of opportunity and growth, he's not shying away from the challenges, right?
Oh, no, definitely not. He's very clear that there are systemic changes that need to happen, especially in the banking sector.
He seems particularly frustrated with the lack of access to affordable mortgages.
Yeah, he sees that as a major roadblock to homeownership for a lot of Nigerians, a system that needs a complete overhaul. He wants to see more competition, more options, a system that actually makes it easier for people to achieve that dream of owning a home.
And he doesn't stop there. He's also critical of the government's role in the real estate market.
Yeah, he's calling for more transparency, more accountability, a more people-centric approach to development. He even suggested creating an ombudsman, an independent body that could help mediate disputes between citizens and the government.
So it's not just about complaining about the problems, it's about offering solutions. He's really passionate about making sure that everyone benefits from the growth of Lagos, not just a select few.
Exactly. And that's what makes his perspective so valuable. He's not just an observer, he's an advocate. He wants to see positive change happen, and he's willing to speak out about what needs to be done.
So what does all of this mean for our listeners? I think it's a reminder that Lagos is a city of immense potential, but also one with its fair share of complexities and challenges.
It's not a place where you can just jump in blindly and expect to make a fortune overnight.
You need to be informed, strategic, and adaptable. Do your research, build a strong network, and don't be afraid to ask questions.
And consider the long-term implications of your investments, both financially and ethically. Think about the kind of legacy you want to create.
Pastor Ashimolowo's message is ultimately one of empowerment. He wants you to see yourself as an active participant in this market, someone who can make a real difference.
So if you're ready to take on the challenge, if you're excited about the potential of Lagos, then don't hesitate. Dive in, explore the opportunities, and be part of this incredible story.
And that's it for our deep dive into Lagos real estate with Pastor Matthew Ashimolowo. We hope you found this conversation as insightful and thought-provoking as we did. And remember, knowledge is power, so stay informed and keep learning. Thanks for joining us on the Deep Dive.